Hello there, it's nice to see you again. This is Laura, and we're going to talk some more about the biology of stress. So, today I want to talk to you about something called the appraisal theory. And it has to do a lot with this question of why do people react differently to the same thing in terms of stress, right? Like, for example, public speaking. I particularly love public speaking. I teach, I've done theater. Um, I'm not going to say it doesn't make me nervous, but it doesn't blow my mind from stress. It makes me like a little jittery, but it's a good jittery that allows me to maybe prepare better or rehearse or look for more information so that I feel better when I actually have to do the public speaking. But I know very well that a lot of people don't feel like that and feel very uncomfortable and very nervous about public speaking. Whenever I have my students make presentations, there's maybe one or two that I can see feel comfortable, and the rest of them are probably very, very nervous around public speaking. And it's the same stressor, right? Public speaking. And they're all given the same amount of help and time to prepare and so forth, but it's how they react to that particular stressor. So this leads us to the idea that the stress response not only depends on the stressor, although of course it depends partially upon the nature of the stressor, but also how the brain interprets the stressor, right? And that is exactly where the theory of appraisal fits in. It has to do with how we evaluate the event, we evaluate the stressor. So remember in the first few videos how we define stress as a challenge for which we don't feel fully equipped for? This theory revolves around that idea. So the earliest ideas around the relationship between how we react to something and how we interpret it go back 2,300 years to the Greek philosophers Aristotle and Plato, right? Like 300 years before Common Era. And of course, there's been many contributors and many uh, expert people that have talked and written about these ideas throughout time. But most prominently in the recent history, um, the two psychologists that are given the greatest responsibility in coining this theory are the Canadian psychologist Magda Arnold, that worked on this in the 40s and 50s, and then the American psychologist Richard S. Lazarus, who worked on this from the 50s all the way to the early 2000s, the majority of his professional life. He studied stress in general, and in particular, he contributed to the appraisal theory. So, what does this theory say, basically, in a nutshell? And I am going to oversimplify the theory and oversimplify all the suppositions and the steps, just so that we don't make this too heavy and too long. I invite you to read more about this, and I am going to leave in the bottom of this video or in the comments, or depending on where you're watching it, two publications where you can go ahead and read some more about this if you want to go deeper, or if you want to take that as a trampoline to do your own research. But anyways, going back to the nutshell, we face a stressor, an event, and the first thing our brain does is to evaluate how the situation is presenting as a function of our resources, right? A stressor is something we don't feel we have the resources to overcome. So it's divided in two stages, the primary appraisal and the secondary appraisal. So first of all, it's a very raw evaluation of the event. Is it positive? Is it negative? Is it irrelevant? For example, I stopped at the red light and I feel that the car behind me bumps the back of my car. I get stressed. I get out of the car and I can see that the person is also mortified. I can clearly see just from facial expression that the person is going to be willing to work with me. They pull their car a little bit back so that we can see what happened. They come out of their car, they apologize as soon as they get out of the car. And when I actually bend down and look at the back of my car, the back of my car is perfect. Nothing has happened. We make small talk and everybody goes their way. Irrelevant. Nothing happened. Positive, when you don't even need to go there, you get good news, you get surprise, somebody makes you a nice gift. Any of that is a positive stressor, good. Or sports, exercising, any of that, positive stress, good. Now, of course, where we dwell is when we actually judge that the situation is negative in some form or way, either is harmful to us or potentially harmful, dangerous, or we've lost something in the process, or it's a threat or something like that. So let's say the other way around. I inadvertently, I'm distracted or whatever, I bumped into the back of another car, right? So this is a negative stress for sure. Oh my, this is my fault. What have I done, right? So in comes the secondary appraisal. What are my resources to try to cope with this situation? Do I have enough resources? Do I have insufficient resources? Can I cope with the situation? So these resources are sort of classified into 3 categories, kind of like the first one is, depending on who you read, sometimes it's called the tools category. So do I have enough internal resources? Do I have enough external resources? For example, in the case of the car crash, did I buy insurance that protects me as well when it's my fault, or did I buy insurance that only protects others because that's the minimum requirement by law? Am I gonna need to be towed? Do I have road assistance that I can call and they can come and tow my car? What type of experience do I have with accidents? Oh, I already been there, done that. Unfortunately, I know that I have to pull out this form, fill out this information. I know that I have my card where I have my road assistance information, where I have my car insurance information. I know that I have to call. Even though it's not pleasant, I have the internal knowledge and tools and the external resources like insurance to cope with this situation. The second category is support. Is there somebody I can call? Is there somebody around that can help me? Maybe I can call my spouse, or maybe I can call a sibling or a good friend that can at least come and stand with me and maybe remind me of things that I would have forgotten because I'm nervous, that type of thing. And then another broad category of resources that our brain is constantly evaluating, constantly weighing for, is what level of control do I have of this situation? Can I actually solve the situation? Can I change it? Can I get my car out of the middle of the road? Can I effectively make sure that because it was my fault, I can cover the others' damage and my damage because I have insurance, that type of thing? Can I at least adapt to the situation? So for example, if I have a poor interaction with someone, say a member of my family or a coworker or something like that, and I am really upset, maybe I can't change that interaction. The interaction has already happened. The things that were said have been said, right? Maybe the person left. Maybe I'm too angry to try to change the situation, but maybe I can try to change my anger, my relationship to the situation. So I can try to look for good ways of changing my relation to the event. The event I can't change, it's happened, but maybe I can change the way I feel about the event. For example, I can go out on a walk. I can try to meditate. I can do breathing exercise. I can try to write my thoughts about what happened, what could have been my fault, what could have been the other person's fault, how could we come to a middle ground, etc. And through that, my relationship, my feelings towards the event will be modified. And then, of course, there's ways of adapting, changing your relation to the situation that may not be as good. What I just described are very healthy ways to change my relation with the situation. There's also things like, okay, I'm just going to forget about it and I am going to go drink my sorrows. That would be a not so good way to change your relationship with the situation, right? And in the long run, it was probably very unhealthy and lead to addictions and all of that. All right. So the end result of the appraisal theory is that the way we feel and the way we weigh our options and our resources in terms of the stressor and the situation determines how intense our response is and how our physiology reacts to the situation. So to the exact same situation, the car accident, the public speaking, the discussion with a coworker, if you feel that the situation is threatening you, right, is highly threatening, that you are in danger, that you can't cope, that you don't have resources, you don't have insurance, you don't have a way to make amends, if you feel out of resources and you feel highly in danger, your stress response, your physiology is going to be that of high stress, a lot of cortisol production, increase in heart rate, etc. And in the long run, repeated events of that sort are going to be dangerous or harmful to many body systems. We'll talk about this in later videos, and are going to put my health at risk. Whereas, given the exact same situation, say public speaking, if I look at it, if my reaction is, it's a little bit of a challenge, but I know I can do it. I have the resources, I've done it before, I practiced, I researched, I know I can do it, I feel like I'm adequately prepared, then the response, even if it's a little bit stressful, is going to be more adrenaline dominated than cortisol dominated. We're going to have some cortisol, but it's going to be a lot less. And adrenaline is probably going to spike and go away. And it's going to be, even though your heart rate may increase a little bit and your respiration may increase a little bit and so forth, in the long run is going to be a lot less deleterious for your health, and it could be even positive. We'll talk about that for your health, as long as it peaks fast, it goes back to normal fast, and it's not too frequent over time. All right, and so that brings us neatly to the topics that we're going to be developing in the next few videos that have exactly to do with how the brain, in terms of neuroscience, what parts of the brain are activated when we face a stressor, how they communicate with each other, and how they interact with other parts of our body and determine how our hormone are produced or not produced, how our cardiovascular system responds, how our respiratory system responds, and so forth, how the physiological changes may vary depending on exactly what type of processing our brain goes through, the outcome of that process in each situation, in depending on each kind of stressor, and of course, how we feel we may or may not be equipped. And this brings us to the end of this video. As always, please do take everything I say with many grains of salt, with an inquisitive mind. Question everything I say. Don't believe anything just because I say it. Do your own research and land at your own conclusions, please. And I'll see you soon for more on the biology of stress.